private detective paid to snoop around.
He's dead, Mr. Angel.
Well, you know what they say about slugs. They always leave slime in their tracks. Are you afraid?
Yeah, I'm afraid. I'm a murder suspect already in 2 cases.
Did you kill him?
No, but the cops might think I did.
The Prince of Darkness protects the powerful.
The egg is the symbol of the soul. Did you know that? It's funny, I have a feeling I've met you before.
And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to episode 255 of the Confessions of a Not-So-Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Friday evening here with me in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. The 17th entry in our ongoing series of most underrated film performances. Now, the last underrated film performance I did was Tim Robbins in Jacob's Ladder. And during that episode, I referenced a film that it somewhat resembles in certain respects. This movie right here, Sir Alan Parker's phenomenal mystery, supernatural thriller horror film, my single favorite horror film, Angel Heart. Now, Sir Alan Parker brought out the big hitters in that film. From an international perspective, he got Charlotte Rampling, terrific. And he got already at that point 2-time Oscar winner Bobby D, Mr. De Niro. But the star of the film is Mickey Rourke. And Mickey Rourke is an enormously talented actor who maybe hasn't had the career that he could have otherwise had, given that he came on the scene like a thunderbolt in the early 1980s, terrific in movies like Body Heat and Diner and Pope of Greenwich Village, Year of the Dragon. 9.5 Weeks isn't really that good, but what I believe is his finest performance is in this movie here. He runs the gamut of emotions, and to quote the late, great Pulitzer Prize-winning film critic Roger Ebert, Mickey Rourke occupies the center of Angel Heart like a violent, unmade bed. He looks unshaven, unwashed, hungover, and desperate at the beginning of the movie before anything goes wrong. It is marvelous film acting, and he did get acclaim for this movie. He got more acclaim for a film called Barfly, which is loosely based on, it was based on a book by Charles Bukowski, but it was he was supposed to be playing a version of Bukowski in that movie. And he got a lot of acclaim for a different film from the same year, A Prayer for the Dying, co-starring, I think, Bob Hoskins. Pretty sure Bob Hoskins was in that one. But Mickey, in this film, if somebody sees Mickey Rourke today, he had the bad plastic surgery after boxing, and physically he looks incredible. I mean, the guy is diesel. I mean, he takes very good care of himself. He's an animal lover, seems like a really good guy. Easy for me to say because I've always been a fan. But it's always jarring when we identify people as old, if we have not seen them when they were young. And to a lesser extent, somebody like De Niro pushing 80 now, Martin Scorsese, if you see him, he's little cute little old guy, 82, 83 years old. And if you see him when he was younger, it's like, holy shit. But yes, even old people, hey, even me at age 50, you look at me when I'm 3, oh, look how cute he is, right? Time does a number on us all, one way or the other. But Mickey Rourke in this film, this is the closest that he comes to actualizing his greatness. What he is able to do with the right role, with the right filmmaker, and the right cast. And he and De Niro had this kind of weird where they went back and forth as if they had issues. It was more Rourke started the problem. He felt that De Niro was too standoffish when they made the movie, and it was someone that he idolized. And then there was an issue a number of years ago where Rourke was told by apparently his agent that he was up for a role in The Irishman, and he seemed to think that De Niro made sure he didn't get the part. And I don't know if that's true or not, but there appeared to be static with these guys who probably hadn't seen each other in a couple of decades anyway. But then recently, Rourke wrote something on his social media about De Niro where it seems that whatever beef they have is squashed and they're not at odds anymore, if in fact they were. But it was weird because Rourke he's so random on social media, and he was getting a lot of weird comments, so he just shut the comments down. He posts constantly. I just doesn't want to deal with people's comments anymore, because we can make fun of him. Hey, you look ridiculous. What are you doing? I don't know. But Mickey Rourke, this is a leading role which allows him to really show off. And for people who only know him as this goofy older guy on social media, he talks about Alain Delon, the famous French star. He's constantly posting about him. He posts about his animals. He posts about athletes that he loves. He did a post today about Mike Menser, the famous bodybuilder, who unfortunately has passed, both he and his brother Ray. But in Angel Heart, he gives a fully formed performance, even though based on what we see and what we're led to believe, there are gaps. There are deliberate gaps. And this is not a movie that appears to have any kind of, because it doesn't start off with any sort of supernatural leanings or mindfuckery a la Fight Club or that sort of movie. But just as, from a different angle, Edward Norton's performance, which seems to me lazy and slack for at least 3/4 of Fight Club, suddenly appears to be touched by genius in the final third, or final quarter if you want to do the math exactly. My dad, the accountant, wouldn't like the way I did that. But Rourke, all the way through Angel Heart, is incredible. Because there are moments of lightness and moments of actual real detective work. His character is a private investigator operating out of Brooklyn. And one thing that Sir Alan Parker does, among many, incredibly well in this film, is set the time period. Now, there are areas in Brooklyn today, because I've spent some time in Flatbush and areas near there. There are buildings that you wouldn't have to redress, whether it's 1987, whether it's 2024. If you want something to be 1955, there are buildings, there are whole streets. You don't have to do that much. You just have to change the clothing and maybe throw a couple of cars from circa 1955 on the streets and you're good to go. Because a lot of those buildings are 100 years old, 120 years old. So in the world of the film, we meet main character Harold Angel, played by Mickey. He is a Brooklyn-based, I don't know if it's Flatbush, I feel like it is, but he is a Brooklyn-based private eye. And ironically, it's 1955, the year that the Dodgers, who were in Brooklyn at the time, won their first and only, Brooklyn won its first and only World Series, and then 2 years later, they flew the coop and moved to Los Angeles. So we're in the mid-1950s of Brooklyn. And Harold Angel is a private eye. And he receives a phone call from a potential client, somebody that wants to hire him to track someone down. It's a private eye. He's looking for somebody, right? And as somebody who hires him is Mr. De Niro, Bobby D, playing this sort of, he doesn't really come across as secretive, but he seems like a guy who would be secretive. He seems like somebody who there is more going on with this gentleman than we think. Not just because, if it's De Niro, it has to be an important part. I know, but his line readings are very precise and particular. And the character he plays, his name is Lewis. He has beautifully manicured nails. His hair is perfect. His beard is perfect. Everything about his presentation. This is a guy who takes immaculate care of himself. And it's a little bit unnerving the way that he talks to Harold Angel. And basically, the setup is that our intrepid hero, Mickey, as Harold Angel, this guy, Lewis, he needs Harold Angel to track someone down. There's a guy, he was a lounge singer after the war, and I helped him in his career, and I just need to know where he is. Well, does he owe you money? No, not exactly, but I need to know where he is. And Rourke, as Harold Angel, is given enough information to get started on his quest to locate this kind of missing crooner named Johnny Favorite. And the guy's last name, De Niro's character, is Cypher, which of course is an interesting name. That's the same name that Joey Pants in The Matrix, Joe Pantoliano plays a character called Cypher. But he asks questions of Harold that don't really make sense the first time we're seeing the movie. It's like, why would he even waste his time with this question? Well, watch the movie a second time and you say, now I get why he does that. But see, this is a movie, and Alan Parker, the filmmaker, knew there was going to be a shit ton of critically important narrative information which was going to go right over the heads of the audience because they're not going to be engaged enough to pay attention. They're going to be wondering what's going on, and there are details that are going to go right past. And he knew that. But he chose to make the film this way. He chose to keep building the suspense and not give away any surprises. He kind of did the opposite of what Alfred Hitchcock did in Vertigo, where he gives away the mystery halfway through. Hitchcock was more about building suspense than suspense and surprise, or surprise and suspense. So Harold Angel goes off to try to find this missing crooner, and he makes some progress in his investigation. But the problem is that the guy he's supposed to be locating, everyone he meets tells him the guy is already dead. Well, according to the information I have, he's not. Well, he is dead. And if he isn't dead, he's dead to me. So we get the idea that this Johnny Favorite was successful in his way, but a real asshole, a really bad guy who was dabbling in some occulty, supernatural shit that Harold Angel does not want any part of. Nothing. Does not want anything to do with it. But he's being paid a lot of money to snoop around, to stick his nose where it doesn't belong. And even in these scenes, Mickey, as kind of crappy as he looks, he was in his early to mid-30s at the time. He's really not looking well, but that's kind of the point, that this character is disheveled. And even if Mickey was, he's a very attractive man as a younger person, they didn't say he was the new Brando or could be the new Brando for nothing. Clean-shaven, 30-year-old Mickey Rourke was a very nice-looking guy. Could have been an Abercrombie & Fitch model. But you see that he is a people person. He doesn't appear on first glance to be a people person, but he knows how to manipulate people. And he knows how to get people to do what he wants. Turn on the charm, bluff his way through. I mean, there's a scene at not a mental institution, but a hospital where people would be in for long-term care, a kind of a long-term care facility, privately funded sort of thing, people paying a ton of money. And the way that Rourke plays this scene, it's not something that landed when I first saw the movie, but he is so artful, and it is a masterclass in film acting just in this scene, because he realizes something that the woman who was working, the kind of, I don't think she's a secretary, she's probably an office manager, but something that is obvious to him is not obvious to her. So for example, a little bit of plot here. He asks about a patient, and it turns out that the patient was supposedly, this patient signed out in 1943. They haven't been here in a dozen years or whatever it is. And it doesn't, we look at the signature and the date and it means nothing, but Harold Angel says it's in ballpoint. So what? My first thought, so what? Who gives a fuck what pen was used? So what the hell does that have to do with the price of tea anywhere around the world? Who gives a shit? There weren't any ballpoint pens in 1943. This entry is not the real entry. Now, he could say the lines in a different way, but he doesn't want to offend this woman. And it is believable that he doesn't really even make fun of her or poke fun. He simply says they weren't big on ballpoint in 43. And then when she says, is that really in ballpoint? She says, you're right. They didn't have ballpoint in 43? And he kind of gives her a funny look, which suggests he wants to kind of rip on her for being stupid, but he doesn't. And Mickey, the way that his eyes are moving around and his body language is a masterclass. It is some of the finest acting that he ever did, just in this one scene, which doesn't really come across as if it's going to be that important. But the fact that there is fuckery afoot here, there are dastardly doings. Why would somebody bother to sign him out as 1943? Well, probably because they knew that somebody like me was going to come looking. And then he realizes there must be some very important stuff going on. You know, in the immortal words of Bill Duke in the movie Predator, something very big was going to happen here. Because whoever it was that did that didn't want there to be a trail, and certainly wanted people to think, okay, he left in 1943. Well, he might have left in 1955, or 54, or 53, we don't know. Mickey has enough information as Harold to put forth a real investigation. He gets the name of a doctor, and he goes to talk to him, and he's making headway. The problem is that the doctor that he meets with, who he knows treated Johnny Favorite, dies. The doctor dies, and not a nice death. He is shot. And he died in between the time that Harold Angel went to get some dinner, a little cheeseburger and french fries, a little Coca-Cola. The guy is shot in between the time that Harold Angel has seen him and puts the guy to bed. He's a smack addict, unfortunately. So I'm going to come back in a few hours. I want you to rest, and I'll fix you some goodies from the icebox. Just to hear Mickey Rourke say the phrase, he says it 3 times. He's talking about heroin. I'm going to fix you some goodies from the icebox. The line reading is epic. I wish that were Mickey Rourke thing, like, I'll be back. I'm going to fix you some goodies from the icebox. Never imagined that it would be heroin. In the 50s, if a kid would say, can I have some goodies from the icebox? He means chocolate chip or chocolate or chips or something that would need to be refrigerated. Maybe even ice cream. I'm going to fix you some goodies from the icebox. Now, when he returns and he has the key, he locked it. So now he has the problem of, I shouldn't have even been talking to this guy. My investigation was not kosher at all. There's no way this guy can be dead because I sure as fuck didn't kill him. And the only way in was to turn the key that I have in my possession. What the fuck is happening here? But at this point of the story, it is, if he were a cop, this would be a police procedural. This could be tiptoeing into serial killer territory, a la Zodiac, because we're looking for somebody. I don't know what he's done, but I'm looking for a guy. People keep telling me that he's already dead. And now the doctor that lied about treating him at a certain point, and I know he's full of shit, now he's dead. So as things begin to go wrong, Rourke begins to look even more and more disheveled, eyes even more bloodshot, even more haggard. I hate to say it, he looks even stinkier, even in the first half of the film before everything really goes wrong. But it is taking a form of a Chinatown-style mystery, where you know that there's more to it than just find a guy. Because if the movie is just, I'm looking for someone named Johnny Favorite. Oh, hey, I'm Johnny Favorite. How can I help you? You know that's not going to be the movie. And in Chinatown, that's a story that starts, it seems like there's not much going on. All right, so there's battle for control of the water. Big fucking deal. Well, it kind of is a big deal. And there's more going on than just a battle for control of the water. There is a lot of very dastardly doings going on in the world of Chinatown. And there is a lot of really bad stuff happening in the world of Angel Heart and in the world of Harold Angel. There's a scene set at Coney Island, which is a bit jarring. It's almost played entirely for laughs. He meets a character who gives him a nose shield because he's going to be going to Louisiana. And the scene shifts. We go from the kind of cold, miserable winter. I think it's probably supposed to be early December. It's not full-on winter, but it's cold. And the film opens an incredible title sequence where we're seeing, the actors introduced. And I don't actually know what is going on precisely in the title sequence, but we see a dead body and we see a figure in the distance. And there was a shit ton of debate on the internet, because this is a movie that has a significant cult following. It bombed at the box office, and it gained a lot of traction with home video. And there were people who, they love this movie just as I do. And there's a lot of debate as to who is that in the opening sequence, what's going on, and how does it tie into the main story, if anything. And I'm not going to spoil that. Trevor Jones, who did the soundtrack, he did a lot of other big movies if you Google his name. It is an incredible score. It's simple and elegant, and in the context of the film, terrifying. It's really, really great work. So the setting shifts from the kind of cold of New York to the oppressive heat of Louisiana. Big Easy. And as Angel's investigation continues, and as Rourke has moments where he thinks he's making headway, and then another person turns up dead, and he's probably going to be asked questions as to why was your name in the hand of a dead guitar player? And so the noose begins to tighten, and Harold is starting to get these weird flashbacks. He starts whistling a tune that he shouldn't know. There is stuff going on that is now pointing the film in supernatural territory. And this is why, very mild spoiler, the 80s and 90s film critic, I was a fan, Bill Harris. He was on various TV shows. I know he worked with Jeffrey Lyons at one point. Jeffrey Lyons was kind of, he was like Siskel and Ebert, but it was a different program that he had. And Bill Harris, I know, was occasionally a guest host. He also worked for Showtime. Very, very solid critic. But Bill Harris loved this movie, as did Roger Ebert. Those were probably the two biggest critics who thought the film was phenomenal. But he said, imagine Chinatown meeting The Exorcist. That's about as good as you can sum this movie up. It starts off a slow-burning period mystery, and then it goes fucking bonkers in the second hour. That's all I'll say. But as Harold Angel's investigation intensifies in Louisiana, he meets a young woman named Epiphany Proudfoot, and her connection is that her mom had a relationship with this missing crooner, Johnny Favorite. And the mom has passed, and Epiphany Proudfoot, the Lisa Bonet character, as far as she knows, Johnny Favorite's dead. That's her dad. So the missing singer impregnated Evangeline Proudfoot, who is the mother, deceased, and now Lisa Bonet as Epiphany Proudfoot, and that's who she might be the last stop in the investigation, because he's run out of people to talk to, except for the Charlotte Rampling character of Margaret Kruzmark. She seems to be involved because she also was friends with this guy that Rourke is looking for. And maybe her dad knows something. The story's going to end in Louisiana one way or the other. And we have no idea what's going to happen. The cops come calling. Cypher, the De Niro character, gives him more money so that he doesn't, quit the case or whatever it might be. But so many things go wrong. And there are so many sequences of incredible frame composition from Sir Alan Parker, pounding heart beat on the soundtrack, Trevor Jones's amazing score, and these fragmented memories. And this is something that was done in later movies. And really, if you look at The Sixth Sense, if you look at Fight Club, if you look at Shutter Island, hell, even Memento to some extent, and Christopher Nolan has talked about Angel Heart as being one of his favorite films, Alan Parker, one of his favorite filmmakers, and he is a huge fan of this film. And he took inspiration from how Alan Parker set the time period. He really loved that, and the mood and the frame compositions, the way that he centers certain things and doesn't center other things. And Nolan has talked about this movie in a number of interviews, if you want to Google that. Through it all, Mickey just keeps hitting home runs. Even in a scene where he is awakened with a start by a couple of cops who need to talk to him. He doesn't have a criminal record. He doesn't look like somebody who bumped off a guitar player. But unfortunately, sometimes, if the shoe fits, they're going to stick it on you. And so he has to find this son of a bitch. Because as he puts it, all I know is Johnny's running around bumping off everyone he used to know, and more, it's me who's on the line for it. Now, Angel Heart is, I know that it was streaming on Paramount Plus. It's never been on Netflix to my knowledge. I know that it was on Tubi and it was streaming free on Pluto, but I'm going to Google right now just to see, because as I always tell you, I don't like to give bad information, but I want you to be able to see this movie. Hold on. Okay, let's see what it says. Okay, so it is free on Pluto. The problem with Pluto is it's just too many damn commercials. You have apps like Tubi where there'll be a couple of commercials every 20 minutes or a half hour. The problem with Pluto, and see, this is the kind of movie I believe you have to watch it straight through. The kind of, I hate to say it this way, orgasmic build in this film is lost if you keep hitting 5 minutes of commercials every 10 minutes. So I don't recommend that you see it, even though it is free on Pluto. But I'm going to see if is it free on anything else? It's free on Canopy. That's interesting. Okay, so Canopy is an app where the films are uncut, uninterrupted. All you need is a library card. It's a free app. You download it for free. A library card. You can steal someone else's library card. You just need a number, and you can watch this movie for free on Canopy, uninterrupted. That's ridiculous, but for example, the movie Dark City Canopy was the only service that it was streaming free on about a year or so ago. Well, why not? I asked somebody for their library card, sue me. But Angel Heart is a movie to seek out and to treasure. It is an extraordinary film from first frame to last. I give it my highest recommendation. If Jacob's Ladder is 9 out of 10, Angel Heart's 10 out of 10. And Mickey Rourke's performance, if you know him from Sin City or you know him from The Rainmaker, I love him in The Rainmaker. The part just isn't big enough. There were people talking about maybe he'll get a supporting actor nomination. J. Lyman Stone or Bruiser, it's not a big enough role. That's why he didn't get nominated, because he was fantastic in that film. But this is his best performance. It is a lead performance, and he just nails everything. He hits everything exactly right. And he goes through the, like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, 7 stages of grief. He goes through them all in this film, through the course. But the main beats are denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. I don't know what the exact stages of grief, but he goes through everything in this film. He starts in one place and he ends literally, figuratively, spiritually, metaphorically, an entirely different place, as does Jacob Singer, Tim Robbins' incredible performance in Jacob's Ladder, which is another movie that pulls the rug out from under you and is a complete mindfuck, as is Angel Heart. Angel Heart, I think, is just a better film. By being the way that it sets the time period, you really feel it. You feel the sweat, you feel the heat when they're in Louisiana. Rourke is fantastic, and De Niro is also great. It's certainly, if it's not his most underrated performance, it's in the conversation, because De Niro sneaks up on you. The strength of what he does, and especially if you go back and rewatch the early scenes with him, every line reading is answering questions that you had the first time through. Alan Parker's script is fantastic and should have gotten a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination, and it didn't. The book that it's based on, which my sister actually has a copy of, is Falling Angel is the name of the book, by William Hortzberg. And Hortzberg also wrote the book that became the movie Legend, the Ridley Scott film with Tom Cruise and Mia Sara and Tim Curry, the phenomenal Tim Curry as Darkness, aka Satan. Certain satanic undercurrent here, right? But Angel Heart would be nothing were it not for the extraordinary lead performance by Mickey Rourke. My favorite Mickey Rourke performances, and easily a top 5 favorite performances of any actor from the decade of the 1980s. A terrific film decade, not as great as the 90s or the 70s, but still a great movie decade. Mickey Rourke as Harold Angel in Sir Alan Parker's 1987 masterpiece, Angel Heart, the 17th entry in our continuing series of most underrated film performances. This has been episode 255 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Friday evening with me here in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or any of the other platforms, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then,